So PEDS, bikes, American with Disabilities Act, there's design treatments to address PEDS and bikes. And there's a large volume of research, both now in the U.S. and in other countries that have been using roundabouts for a lot longer. And they all point to a very safe pedestrian record. And so it's really, and it's counterintuitive. And we're going to look at some videos and show some pedestrians going through this. This is showing that project in Ohio and some of the enhancements that we did, such as landscaping through here, bollards, pedestrian scale lighting can be, depending on the site, can be used to improve and enhance the pedestrian environment. This is a project in Springfield, Oregon, that has a bus rapid transit. So there's a lot of pedestrians crossing to get to the buses. There's shared use pathways. They've used, in that case, some rectangular rapid flashing beacons for the crossings as a pedestrian beacon enhancement in this project. So pedestrian crossings at roundabouts, there's lower speeds, there's shorter crossing distances, and pedestrians cross one direction of travel at a time. So this is the intersection before the roundabout. So from a delay perspective, this pedestrian experiences a minute before the signal changes and you get across. Usually, if that's me, I'm thinking I should have just drove, but it might have been quicker. But it just shows the two-stage crossing on the bottom, and it'll show this pedestrian getting across. I'll just loop it. She gets across a couple, 3, 4 times before this pedestrian goes across. You might have noticed a bunch of cyclists going through this. This is on a high, it's actually an Ironman route, so there's lots of training, lots of cyclists go through this roundabout in the summers. So anyway, I think you get the point. We'll move on. Quite a bit less delay. This is some quotes from a school bus operator. Talks about how it's easier for them. I would recommend roundabouts in other districts. This is a school crossing guard. This is a quote I lifted out of a local newspaper. She said, I love them. You only have to stop one lane of traffic at a time. The cars go slow through the roundabout, so the crossing aspect is great. So this is a project where we looked at a signal versus a roundabout. There's a school here on this corner. Pretty typical widening with signalization compared to a roundabout. So when we look at the roundabout crossing, there's about 60 feet of crossing. So that's more exposure. You have right turns on red. You often have permissive lefts that can create problems as well. So the roundabout, you have basically about 18 feet at a time that you cross into what's called the pedestrian refuge, or the split around. So you cross one direction at a time. And by the way, these crossing locations are based on that UK science and engineering, which is where cars are slow, right? So when you're going slow in your car, and we all can relate to this, if there's a ped waiting and you're going 35 miles per hour, 9 times out of 10, if you stop for that ped, they're going to be nervous, and they're going to wait and cross you through. And so oftentimes you just keep going. Right? But if you're already going 15, 20 miles per hour, it's so easy to just let up on your gas and let someone go across. And in roundabouts, that's what roundabouts, it's built into how they operate. Get into multi-lane roundabouts. This is a project, a roundabout on Michigan State campus on a football Saturday. So groups of pedestrians crossing at a time. This project, it just shows how they operate. And this is a video I shot of high volume intersection in Loveland. This is Taft, I think, and 34th. So this is, again, you can see the comparison. PEDs are walking. Here, with signals, here's a PED. It's hard to see him. It's coming up to the corner. He or she is going to press the button, and he has a long wait before the signal changes, before you can cross. And it's not particularly pedestrian friendly to just wait forever to cross. And plus you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lanes of traffic to try to cross. This is a typical afternoon during classes in that particular example. So here the pedestrians, it's kind of painful, but wait, we're going to wait. Wait for, how long does it take? Oh, there he goes. You have right turners on red that, there's not, it's not conflict free at a signal. There's right turners, there's permissive lefts. It's not conflict free at the roundabout either. It's not a panacea per se. Okay, but when designed well, they operate very well. Here's a group of, I shot a drone recently. This is a high volume 2x2 roundabout with some kids that are probably middle school age. This is a community outside of Madison, where I live, Wisconsin, that it's a community where kids still don't wear helmets when they bike, like when I grew up. Okay, these kids, there's one kid on the handlebars, there's one kid pushing a skateboard, and they went to the pedestrian refuge. They're waiting for someone to slow down for them to go. So the vehicles here are traveling at about 15 miles per hour through here, and so here someone stopped and they went across. Bikes. Roundabouts work well with bikes. Whether you're putting on-street shared use bike lanes, on-street bike lanes or off-street shared use type pathways, roundabouts work well. It's the crossings that you're dealing with that. Another thing is that, we often don't need the same amount of cross-section with roundabouts versus signals. And so this is a comparison of a project this is in North Carolina, I believe, that did what's called a road diet. Took lanes off the road, added ped and bike facilities within the right-of-way that they had, and removed vehicle lanes. But they still are moving traffic as well as they were previously. This is a project in Lafayette, California, shared use pathways, connecting to regional paths, as well as on-street bike lanes as well. So this is the first roundabout in their community. It's been open now for a couple of years.
Can you go back? You said something about on-street bikeways. I'm not seeing those on there. Can you point to where the on-street?
Well, it's a little tough to see. See the green paint here?
Okay.
That's the ending of the
Bike lane, and then you're putting it on a pedestrian path.
And then, so the cyclist, the higher level cyclist, has the option to take a lane as a vehicle and proceed through the roundabout. So if they're going to make a right turn, they can stay on the road. Or if they're going to make a left and they want to stay on the road, they would cross into the lane, take a vehicle lane, and go through if you're a higher level cyclist. Or you can exit onto a shared use pathway and kind of proceed at a slower rate. And if you're, like in this case, they're connecting to a regional path over here, or if you're crossing to go home and those sorts of things, you can do that.
So my question is, let's talk specifically about Estes Park. Are we looking at having both of those issues? Both of those possibilities for bikes, so it's either on lane or bicycle path next to it. What's the design look like in Estes?
Well, it's dependent upon the project.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely right. In locations north up here, we don't have any on-street bike lanes coming up to the roundabout, so it doesn't make a lot of sense for a short distance, stripe an on-street bike lane when we don't have a lane feeding or receiving the cyclist. But we do have an attached multi-use trail, and so we would expect if the experienced cyclist is probably already in the lane acting as a car, and they'll go through as a vehicle would. I think the predominant user is going to be on the path, going through the intersection at the crosswalk, acting as a pedestrian.
Okay. Signage for that, is there, I'm just wondering about
Yep.
design and signage for the bicyclist.
There is signage for the cyclists, bike lane ends, take lane. One of the things that's, with some of the buffered bike lane design techniques, we're starting to use the green paint, which is a transitional to indicate to cyclists that the lane is ending. So you want to visually show them with the marking, and then you can also supplement that with signage as well.
Good.
Yep. And there are pedestrian signage as well that we would have. So this shows a project in Napa, California, that off of, I think this is 101, entrance to the as a gateway to their downtown, two roundabout proposal. And so they're in this case, they're putting in what's a 10-foot wide shared use bike lane on both sides of the road. So cyclists can either stay on those, or if you're an on-street cyclist, you can stay on the roadway as well. And so it really gives you the option to do either, which is really through the course of these projects in Lafayette, there's a San Francisco has a very strong bicyclist community, and they showed up in Lafayette and in Napa, and it started to make me realize, what we really actually have a very good roundabouts are really good for bikes. I mean, they're quite good, and so here's back to one of the there is some if someone Googles it, you can pull up data that's decades old, that's from old traffic circles. Okay, in the UK, which says there's poor cyclist safety record. Okay, this is a roundabout in New Jersey, a rotary, I should say, an old rotary that's very large. Vehicle speeds are very high, and you can see those cyclists had to get on it to get in there. And those speeds, that's not much fun as a cyclist. I know. I mean, I don't ride as much as I used to, but I tend to just stay off the roads. But here's an example of a project, a modern roundabout, and this is a cycling group that's in an afternoon, and they're in the road. I don't know where they started from exactly, probably up in the community up here. And they're on the road. There's actually, and they're kind of headed out of town. They might be getting to some country roads. There is a pathway over here on this side of the road that connects to a regional pathway, but they're on the road, and it just shows their speed and the car's speeds are very similar, about 15 miles per hour in this case. It's a relatively compact size roundabout. Speeds are approximately 15 miles per hour when drivers are circulating. Here's a video I shot standing at, this is the first roundabout in Wisconsin on the state highway system. And so I would go visit it from time to time. And I caught on a summer afternoons a couple of kids that were probably 12 on their BMX bikes. These kids have helmets on. One kid doesn't have a shirt on. I don't know, they may not even be 12. They look, you tell me. I mean, they're not 12. Probably, maybe they are, 10 to 12. Anyway, this is a community, these kids are on their bikes, and these are the things that I got into this business for, is to promote, all modes.